The first issue is whether First Bank rejection of payment was justified by the presentation of the certificate of conformity from an agency other than the one specified in the letter of credit. The letter of credit explicitly required the certificate of conformity to be issued by Plant Inspection Service Australia (FISA). However, Capital Machinery Ltd presented a certificate issued by a different agency, which constituted a discrepancy. Under the UCP 600, strict compliance principle govern letter of credit. Article 5 states that banks are required to examine document alone without regard the goods or their performance. Article 14 mandates that document must strictly comply with the terms outlined in the letter of credit, and Article 16 allow bank to reject payment if discrepancy exists. Legal precedent further reinforces this principle. For instance, in Fortis Bank SF versus Indian Overseas Banks 2009, the court emphasized that banks must adhere strictly to the letter of credit term and even minor deviation justify rejection. Similarly, in the Punjabi National Bank versus Malayan Banking 2020, the court affirmed that banks are only concerned with the documents specified in the letter of credit, not the goods or their condition. In this case, the presenter of the certificate conformity from an agency other than PISA violate the strict compliance rules. Banks are obligated to reject any document that do not align perfectly with the terms of the letter of credit. Therefore, First Bank rejection of payment was justified because the certificate of conformity did not meet the stipulated requirement. The second issue, whether Capital Machinery Ltd failed to present document within the validity period of letter of credit justified First Bank rejection. The letter of credit required the document to be presented within 15 days of shipment, since the shipment occurred on 20 November 2024, the documents were due by 5 December 2024. However, Capital Machinery Ltd submitted the document on 15 December 2024, which was 10 days late and outside the specified timeframe. Under UCP 600, Article 14A requires strict adherence to the term of the credit, and Article 14C stipulates that document must be presented within the designated period. Any delay constitutes non-compliance, giving the bank ground to reject the document. This principle is supported by the legal precedent. In Equitable Trust Co. versus Dawson Partners 1927, the court ruled that even minor deviation, including late submission, justify rejection under the doctrine of strict compliance. Similarly, in Intraco Ltd versus Notice Shipping Corp. 1981, the court highlighted that adherence to deadline is crucial to maintaining the reliability and integrity of letter of credit. In this case, Capital Machinery Ltd failed to comply with the requirement timeframe, thereby breaching the terms of the letter of credit by submitting the document 10 days late. They gave First Bank legitimate ground to reject them. Therefore, First Bank rejection of the late submission was justified under the rules of UCP 600.
My name is Nurul Asyiqin. The next issue is did Capital Machinery Limited fail to properly clear the goods for export as alleged by Jaya Construction. Under a strict FOB contract, the seller has critical responsibilities such as ensuring goods are clear for export, delivered onto the buyer's designated vessel, and accompanied by all necessary documents. Until goods pass the ship rail, the seller assumes all risks. Non-fulfillment of any of these obligations constitute a breach and the buyer has the right to reject the goods. This issue is reinforced by landmark cases, for example, in Pyrene and Company Limited versus India Navigation. The seller was required to secure an export license and comply with delivery instruction. In Sheringham Limited versus Monroe, failure to clear goods for export was deemed a breach, justifying buyer rejection. Similarly, Wibble and Sons versus Rosenberg emphasized the seller's duty to complete all formalities as failure causes delays for the buyer. Now we applying this principle to Jaya construction case. They alleged that Jaya Machinery Limited failed to properly clear goods for export. This branch has supported by the cited case law gives Jaya Construction the legal right to reject the goods and hold the seller liable. In conclusion, strict FOB contract demand precise The third issue is whether Jaya Construction justify in rejecting the goods based on incomplete insurance coverage provided by Capital Machinery Limited. A strict FOB contract requires the seller to deliver goods to the buyer's vessel, with all the risks transferring once the goods cross the ship rail. Compliance with contract term is critical, including insurance, documentation, and delivery details. Any breach, even minor, give the buyer grounds to reject the goods. This is reinforced by cases like Pyrene and Company Limited versus India Navigation, which held that seller must follow terms strictly. Sheringham Limited versus Munro further demonstrated that partial compliance such as incomplete insurance breaches the contract, and in the Julia, strict adherence the documentation requirement was essential for buyers' protection. In the Jaya of in the case of Jaya Construction, the refusal of the goods in legally justified. Capital Machinery Limited breached the contract by failing to provide full insurance coverage as agreed upon. Such a breach aligned with precedents that enforce strict FOB compliance. To conclude, this case highlights the necessity of strict adherence to FOB terms, ensuring clarity in risk transfer and buyer protection.
Okay, so for issue 5 is are the discrepancies in the documents minor as claimed by Capital Machinery Limited. So there are several key discrepancies in Capital Machinery's documents. The first one is the certificate of conformity. Letter of credit required a certificate from Plant Inspection Services Australia, or PISA. Capital Machinery Limited provided a certificate from a different agency. Deviation violates the strict compliance principle, giving the buyer and the bank the right to reject. The second key discrepancy is insurance certificate. Insurance coverage was only 90% of the goods value, and under UCP 600 Article 28C, it mandates coverage of at least 110% of CIF or CIP value unless otherwise specified. This non-compliance risks the buyer's ability to recover in full value in case of loss. The third key discrepancy is presentation outside validity period. Shipping occurred in November 2024, and documents were submitted on December 15, 2024, exceeding the 15-day presentation period stipulated in the letter of credit. This violates UCP 600 Article 14C, rendering the letter of credit null and void. So, in conclusion, the strict compliance principle underpins the accuracy in international trade transactions, and Capital Machinery Limited's assertion that discrepancies are minor conflicts with the principle of strict compliance. Courts uphold rejection for any deviations as illustrated in a previous case by Bank Meli Iran versus Barclays Bank. The discrepancy justify First Bank's decision to reject the documents. So the sixth issue is what remedies are available to the parties. The first one is the remedies available to Capital Machinery or the seller. The first remedy available to the seller is claim for payment under letter of credit. They are unable to enforce payment due to non-compliance with UCP 600 requirements. Serious infractions include wrong inspection agency, insufficient insurance, and late submission. They can also claim invalid due to strict compliance standard, as happened in a previous case, which is from Equitable Trust Co. of New York versus Dawson Partners Limited, 1927. The second remedy for the seller is claim breach of contract by Jaya Construction. Seller can argue rejection of good was unwarranted goods as were delivered on November 20th per FOB terms, and buyer disputes delay caused by incorrect export clearance, weakening the seller's claim for damages. The third one is mitigation of losses. Seller must reduce losses by finding new buyers or retrieving goods if rejected by the buyer. The next remedy is remedies available to Jaya Construction or the buyer. The first one is rejection of goods and non-payment. They can withhold payment under letter of credit due to First Bank's rejection of non-compliant documents. Discrepancies include late presentation, non-confirming insurance, and inspection certificate. Strict compliance principle under UCP 600 also supports rejection. The second remedy is claim for damages for delay. Seller's incorrect export clearance caused by delays and potential losses, for example, increased shipping costs and loss of business. Breach of FOB terms allow buyer to seek damages. And the third one is also mitigation of losses. Buyer must minimize losses by recovering goods, obtaining insurance, or finding alternative solution. So in conclusion, Capital Machinery Limited have limited remedies due to non-compliance with the letter of credit and potential breach of FOB. Payment claim is unlikely to succeed due to strict compliance standard as per Gyan Singh and Co. Limited versus Banque de Idonche in 1974 case. For Jaya Construction, they are entitled to reject the goods and refuse payment, and they can also seek damage if delays caused by the seller action led to significant losses.